At 1:45 in the morning, on September 15, 2008, a lawyer pressed file on a bankruptcy petition. By sunrise, a bank that had survived the Civil War and the Great Depression was gone. 158 years of history. $639 billion in assets. 25,000 jobs. Erased before breakfast. Here's what they don't tell you. Lehman Brothers didn't die because it ran out of money. It died because it ran out of people willing to believe it had money. That difference is the most important lesson in modern finance. This is that weekend, hour by hour, inside the rooms where it happened. And at the end, the one number that made it inevitable, a year early. To understand how it died, start with what it was. 1850, Montgomery, Alabama. 3 immigrant brothers trading cotton. Over a century and a half, that little trading house became the 4th largest investment bank in America. By the 2000s, one man ran it, Richard Fuld. Wall Street called him the gorilla, the longest-serving chief on the street. Under Fuld, one rule: never show weakness. Profits broke records year after year, and the stock kept climbing. 2007, over $4 billion of profit. The stock above $80. Lehman looked unstoppable. But the record profits weren't coming from brilliant advice. They came from one massive bet, made almost entirely with borrowed money. In the mid-2000s, American housing looked like a machine that only went up. Lehman went all in. Subprime mortgages, commercial real estate, leveraged loans, and it kept tens of billions of dollars of them on its own books. Now, the number I promised. For every dollar of its own capital, Lehman controlled roughly $30 of assets. At the peak, over 40. At 30 to 1, if your assets drop just 3%, your capital is gone. All of it. Housing prices didn't even need to crash. They just needed to wobble. And there was a second problem, more dangerous and almost invisible to anyone outside the industry. Lehman funded itself with repo, overnight loans renewed every single morning, backed by its assets as collateral. Hundreds of billions that had to be borrowed again every day. Miss one morning, and the bank suffocates within days. A bank at 30 to 1, funded overnight, is a skyscraper whose foundation is re-poured every night while the city sleeps. And when the numbers turned ugly, Lehman had a trick. Internally, they called it Repo 105. Before each quarterly report, roughly $50 billion quietly moved off the balance sheet. After the report, it moved back. Investors saw the polished version. The rot stayed hidden. The setup was complete. It only needed a spark. March 2008. Bear Stearns, Wall Street's 5th largest investment bank, running a similar playbook, collapses in a single week. The Federal Reserve steps in and arranges a rescue sale to J.P. Morgan. Wall Street learns exactly the wrong lesson. If things go bad, the government catches you. Every risk desk in Manhattan quietly recalibrated around that idea. All summer, Fuld hunted for capital. Talks with Warren Buffett went nowhere. The serious lifeline was Korea Development Bank. On September 9th, those talks collapsed in public view. Lehman's stock fell 45% in one day. Remember, the foundation poured fresh every night. This is when the concrete stopped arriving. Hedge fund clients pulled their accounts, repo lenders demanded more collateral, or simply walked away. The overnight money, the bank's oxygen, was being shut off, hour by hour. September 10th. Lehman pre-announces a $3.9 billion quarterly loss. Fuld insists the firm is solvent. Whether that was true had stopped mattering. A bank funded by overnight trust cannot survive a week of universal doubt. By Friday, September 12th, Lehman had days left, maybe hours. That evening, phones rang across Manhattan. Every major Wall Street chief executive was summoned downtown. Their destination, a stone fortress in Lower Manhattan, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The weekend had begun. Friday night, Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, a former Goldman chief, delivers the message: no government money. 6 months earlier, they rescued Bear and were savaged for it. This time, Wall Street solves it, or watches it burn. Two possible buyers remained in orbit: Bank of America and the British bank Barclays. Saturday, teams of bankers crawl through Lehman's books. What they find is worse than anyone imagined. The commercial real estate portfolio alone has a hole that frightens people who price risk for a living. Bank of America studies the numbers, quietly loses interest, and pivots, because another wounded bank is for sale that weekend. Merrill Lynch, the rescue Lehman needed, happened that exact weekend to somebody else. $50 billion, agreed by Sunday. That left Barclays. And on Sunday morning, Barclays actually wanted the deal. The banks in the room even agreed to absorb toxic assets between them to close it. For a few hours, Lehman was saved. Then came the phone call from London. Colin settled, Barclays' British regulator would not approve on the spot. No waiver of the shareholder vote. No immediate guarantee of Lehman's trades. One detail nobody in New York had locked down. And the guarantee had to exist before Asian markets opened Monday. Midday Sunday, September 14th. No buyers left. No backstop. Nothing. That evening, the government that wasn't intervening quietly pushed Lehman to file before markets opened. Orderly death beats chaotic death. At 1:45 on Monday morning, Lehman Brothers filed the largest bankruptcy in American history. Monday morning, the world watched thousands of employees carry cardboard boxes out of the tower on 7th Avenue. Many of them had their entire life savings in Lehman stock. By the time they reached the street, it was worth nothing. By congressional count, the chief executive had taken home nearly $500 million in 8 years. He disputed that number. Here's what happened next, and why this weekend still matters. Within 24 hours, a money market fund holding Lehman debt broke the buck. America's safest investment suddenly wasn't safe. Panic spread to everything. One day after letting Lehman die, the government rescued AIG with $85 billion. 3 weeks later, Congress approved a $700 billion rescue for the financial system. The era of letting banks fail had ended. So was letting Lehman fail a principled stand against moral hazard. That principle survived exactly one day. Bear saved, Lehman dead. AIG saved. Nobody could predict anymore who lives and who dies. And when the rules are unpredictable, everyone runs at once. But the deepest lesson is the one from the beginning of this story, and it's the one most investors still get wrong. Solvency is an accounting opinion. Liquidity is a fact. Lehman's balance sheet showed billions in capital until the very end. It still died. A bank built on overnight trust doesn't need to be broke to collapse. It only needs enough people to suspect it might be. 15 years later, Credit Suisse followed the same script. We'll cover it. The pattern doesn't retire. One thing in this story should bother you. Lehman sold risk for a living, packaging it, pricing it, advising on it. How does a firm whose entire product is understanding risk die of risk? Because what investment banks actually sell is not what most people think. It's not stocks, and it's not advice. In the next video, where their money really comes from. Some of it will genuinely surprise you. Subscribe so you don't miss it.